Well, hey everyone, Pastor Shane here with episode 17 of our Kingdom Life series that we've been going through. The series is centered around Jesus' famous Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's getting harder to do really fast recaps of the whole thing because we've covered so much ground. So let me just do a recap of chapter 6, okay? We began Matthew chapter 6 a few episodes ago, and one of the things we noted is that the first half of this chapter, chapter 6, Jesus would deal with three topics: the topic of giving, the topic of praying, and the topic of fasting. And with each one, what he does is he contrasts how to do it self-righteously versus righteously, okay? Now, remember, the Sermon on the Mount is a massive realignment of how the religious leaders have been teaching people to obey the law of Moses. Everything Jesus teaches in this sermon requires Holy Spirit power to actually live it out, which is why we began this series in episode 1 talking about how the Spirit of God makes each of us sacred space. All right? Now, with that in mind, Chapter 6 is dealing with motives, all right? Why do we give? Why do we pray? And why do we fast in ways that cause other people to take notice, all right? So we've already established that doing these things in a manner in order to get praise from men is self-righteous, but doing them for the praise of the Father is righteous. So let's read our text and try to wrap our hearts around what it looks like to fast righteously, all right? So it's just 3 verses. It's verses 16, 17, and 18 of Matthew chapter 6. Here we go. And when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces, that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Okay, now, I should say immediately, okay, that I feel horribly unqualified to tell anyone anything about fasting. Back in January, pre-corona, all right, during the middle of a week of fasting, which was itself a huge struggle for me, I sensed the Lord lead me to an idea that 2020 was going to be a year for me to wrestle with fasting. Okay, and so I did what I thought was a good idea. I marked out the first Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, the first Monday through Wednesday of each month as a 3-day fast, okay? Honestly, I didn't sense any pushback from the Lord on that plan, so I just moved ahead with it, okay? Now, sitting here in August, I could tell you that 2020 has definitely been a year of wrestling with fasting, okay? I have, in my life, I have done multiple 7-day fasts, but for some reason, every 3-day fast that I've tried to do this year, from February forward to the present, all right, it has been a fight every moment of the day. And I don't tell you, hey, I'm some super Christian because I've done a 7-day fast. Look, there are people who do 40-day fasts. So even if you were using that measuring stick, I'm still not very far along in that. So, but here's what I'm saying. Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you that spiritually speaking, not eating and fasting are 2 different things. Okay. I'm not too bad. I can do fairly well at not eating. Now, you wouldn't be able to tell that from looking at me, right? Okay, fat joke out of the way. But in all seriousness, I can actually do okay at not eating. But what I have flat out wrestled with is fasting. Okay? So let's do this. Let's deal with what Jesus has said and see where this takes us, okay? First off, like giving and praying, Jesus discourages practicing your fasts in ways that draw attention to yourself, okay? Now, honestly, what he describes here, I'm just being real, is kind of hard for me to see in my mind, okay? I've never, and I don't know anybody who has done this, but I just don't even understand. I've never disfigured my face so that people would know that I'm fasting. I don't know anybody who has. But if we take a moment and just kind of peel the layers back a little bit and consider the heart that's behind that disfigured face, we get to the answer. And what it is it is a heart that wants to impress other people with their spirituality. Now this leads me to a thought, all right? I've been leading in churches in different capacities for 22 years now, okay? There have definitely been times when I think the line between leading by example and leading to be seen became muddy, okay? I mean, I've seen it happen in others. I've discovered that in myself as well. And so fasting kind of presents a pickle, okay? So Jesus tells us, clean up, wash your face. And by the way, that is not plugging for the book, Girl, Wash Your Face or whatever. Believe me, it's not even close. Jesus tells us to clean up, wash our faces, and fast in secret, okay? Where the Father can see it. Now, here's the pickle. The moment you sit at lunch with a coworker or somebody else and you refuse food, what do you say? Okay, I mean, should you lie? I mean, I don't think so. But this actually gets us to the heart of Jesus' teaching. Okay, the matter of fasting is not so much about who knows you're doing it, but who are you doing it for? All right. Is it okay to let someone know you're fasting? Yeah, it is. This issue is the issue at hand is publicly broadcasting it to anyone and everyone unsolicited. All right. When you're doing that, fasting isn't for the Father. It's for you. And when it's for you, it's self-righteous. And your reward won't be from the Father. But righteous fasting is for Him. And He rewards what those things are, those things that we do for Him. Okay? Now, I want to draw attention though to the first four the first four words of verse 17, okay? Because I think this is important. This is huge. The first four words of verse 17 say, "But when you fast." Now, there's actually an assumption present in Jesus' statement here, okay? And the assumption is that you are fasting, okay? From time to time, okay? I mean, clearly we can't fast every day, okay? Not a complete fast all day long, but but from time to time you are fasting, okay? See, fasting is the great neglected spiritual discipline of our instant gratification day, okay? Why? Well, I mean, because the reward comes later. I mean, we've been conditioned to want the reward now, but with fasting, that's not always how it works. Matter of fact, I would say fasting seldom gives you a reward now. It's always a delayed gratification. I mean, I've talked with many believers, okay, who've been saved for a long time, okay? I mean, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, but they've never attempted to fast. Some of that is a lack of teaching. Okay, that's I guess that's all right. But more of it is actually a lack of desire or a misunderstanding that only super Christians engage in fasting. Okay, that last part is completely untrue. It's not just a discipline for super Christians, all right? If there is even such a thing as a super Christian. See, Jesus expected that once he ascended back to the Father, that his followers would fast with some kind of regularity. I mean, look at Matthew 9:15. Jesus is actually being questioned by the religious leaders about why his disciples don't fast. And he answers them with this. Jesus answered, "How can the guests of the bridegroom mourn while he is with them? The time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them, and then they will fast." All right? So that's that, all right? I mean, Jesus assumes we're going to fast, but let's just assume for a moment that you do fast and your motivation is completely righteous. You can still miss the point, okay? See, let's deal with believers who do fast. Many believers fast for an answer to something that is pressing, like a decision or a healing, or they need some kind of a miracle in their life that it needs to happen right now or very soon. Don't misunderstand me. There are times to fast for things like that. In fact, that's kind of the big, huge plot point of the book of Esther, or one of the big, huge plot points, is that she called all of Israel to a 3-day fast so that she could have the courage to go in and speak to the king. And not just that, but also have a favorable answer. All right, so there's a time for this, okay? But the problem is that because of the way we've been trained for instant gratification, much, if not most, of our fasting centers around immediate felt needs. So let's ask some questions. What kind of fasting should we do? Well, let's divide fasting into two broad categories, okay? These can be subdivided, but we're just going to deal with them in broad categories. The first one we've already mentioned, and it's an urgent need that only God can answer, so we fast, all right? That's fairly simple. They're not hard to explain. And so we'll just label those kinds of fasts urgent fasts, all right? So they're for immediate felt needs that need answers quickly, or we sense that there needs to be a quick answer. All right. Now, the second kind of fast, broad category, is more directed at regular discipline. All right. They're not tied to any felt or urgent needs. Okay. These fasts are called, or we're going to call them, feasting fasts. Now, I didn't coin that phrase. I didn't coin the other one either, but I'm going to use it, all right? And it kind of, I know that there's kind of a seeming paradox in that, a contradiction of words. Let me explain. A feasting fast is where instead of feasting on food, we feast on God, okay? Remember, John chapter 4, Jesus and the disciples, Jesus says we must go through Samaria, so they go through Samaria. Jesus encounters this woman at the well. He sends the disciples into town to get food, and he ministers to this woman, and when they get back with the food, he says he wasn't hungry anymore. His food was to do the will of the Father, which he had been doing the whole time while they were gone, as he ministered to this Samaritan woman at the well. There is a satisfaction we can gain from time with the Father that will satiate all of our appetites. And that is a feasting fast. Okay? Now, feasting fasts can be planned or they can happen spontaneously. I've experienced the spontaneous type where, for whatever reason, I was, I mean, this has happened several times in my life. You go about doing something and you're so invested in whatever God has you doing it or ministering or whatever you're doing that stopping for food just doesn't seem preferable. So in that situation, I pressed on and I didn't eat because I was more satisfied by the work that the Spirit was doing than the food could ever make me. All right. I think we've maybe if you've been a believer and you're like seriously engaged in serving the kingdom, you've probably experienced something like this. Okay. But here's the thing: spontaneous feast fasts can't sustain a discipline. All right. So we regularly, we must be regularly satisfied by feasting on the Lord and deny ourselves the satisfaction of food. See, that's a learned thing. Okay. It doesn't come naturally. And everyone who I know who fasts for extended periods of time, I mean, even talking up to, 10, 20, 30, 40 days, they always feel sad when they return to food. I mean, even me, with my 7-day fast that I've done in the past, I every one of them, I have this thought at the end of it that says, I could keep going. And there's a little sadness involved in breaking that, because you could keep going because it has been so good. But the return to normal life, for whatever reason, just grabs us back in. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I mean, when I've done 7-day fasts, I set the time that it's going to be for, 7 days. And so when I get to the end of it, it's okay to break it. All right. My point is that every time it hits me, I could keep going, and I'm a little sad that I'm going to break it. Why don't I not break it? I like food. All right. I'm just saying. But you get my point. But see, you don't get to the 10, the 20, the 30, even the 40-day fast by just sustaining yourself on urgent fasts or spontaneous fasts. Okay, spontaneous feasting fasts. You get to this place by regular rhythms of planned feasting fasts. Okay. And even then, it's usually a fight. Why? Because we are at war. Fasting of any kind will initiate a battle. Okay, which is, and that's not to say that there wasn't a battle before, but because we're always at war. But what happens when you initiate a fast is you also are entering into a time of heightened spiritual awareness where the battle just becomes a little more real. Okay. That's why this year, at least for me, has been such a wrestling match when I try to fast. I'm actually trying to grow in this. And the battle has been on steroids every time. See, look, we all have an enemy. There is active resistance against, any attempt that we make to grow spiritually from the enemy, from the world, from our flesh. I mean, we have these 3 main contenders for, who's going to be king of the day every day. And so therefore, fasting will always be a challenge because you're trying to grow spiritually. You're trying to go against the nature of this world, the nature of your flesh. But we have to understand that that's normal for spiritual war, okay? And see, the problem with many believers, and I used to be one of them, is that for whatever reason, we're surprised when suddenly we find ourselves in a fight. But that's a different teaching. I can't go there because I'm almost out of time. So I've actually been very brief in this talk about fasting, okay? It's, the proverbial scratching of the surface. This has been a very broad treatment on purpose of the subject, so please know that there is so much more, okay, to discover. I mean, fasting draws us close to the Father. Fasting helps us kill the flesh. Fasting is a spiritual warfare tactic. Fasting prepares us for future challenges and so much more. I mean, we really should seek to better understand this discipline that Jesus kind of assumed that we would be doing. And when we do it, we need to do it righteously, which is the whole point of Jesus' teaching here today. So, all right. So I'm going to stop there. As always, I hope that this has been helpful and that it challenges you to grow in your journey with the Lord. I'm on the same journey. Look, I mean, don't ever hold me in some kind of a super Christian thing. I would hate to learn that you would do that. Okay, I'm on the same journey. The moment I think that I have all this figured out, you really should stop listening to me. Growing in faith always grows us in two directions. It does grow us in knowledge. But it also grows us in wonder. The more I know Jesus, the more I wonder why he chose me to begin with. The more I know him, the more I wonder how much I actually don't know. So I hope you'll stay on this journey with me. Okay. So until next time, grace and peace.